YouTube, what's happening? It is Monday, June 24th. There are 12 games in baseball to talk about today. But first, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. As you can see yesterday, went 6-4. It's a green day, 0.88 units back in the bankroll, 4.28 over the last week, and still up 43.1 over the last 30 days. The streak is still going. The green is still there. We're still climbing the mountain here. So we're going to have dips and valleys, but either way, we're still climbing upwards. So we have 12 games. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and let's jump into that first game. All right, first up, we got Cleveland with their 5-game winning streak against Baltimore with their 3-game losing streak. Bobby with his 3.65 going up against Povich with a 3.94. You can see the only thing Povich is leading in is the hits category, so Bobby has a clear advantage here. Nerfy and Urfi are both red, so we pass on those, not what we're talking about. Looking at the odds, we see that Baltimore is a slight favorite at home across the board. We have 7.5, 8, 8.5 out there for the totals. Looking at batting, we see that Cleveland, 6.3 runs in their last 3 games for 5th. Meanwhile, Baltimore, 4.3 for 17th. So advantage Cleveland on the runs, but batting average the last 3 are the same, 265 and 271. Not much of a difference. Same for strikeouts, 6.7, 7.3. So we have Cleveland with a slight advantage in actually scoring runs, and I would say probably a slight advantage in pitching, but we'll dive a little deeper into that. IB out here as a 3.65, 1.13. You see the stats, has not faced Baltimore recently, so it pitched the gem against Seattle. Only gave up 4 against Cincy. That's the worst game he's had in this whole screenshot right here. KC 6 for 2, 3 for 1 against Washington, 6 for 3 against LA. Twins 4 for 1. But there's no real outstanding teams that are on fire when he faced them. So this could be fool's gold, if anything. Looking at Povich, we see he's faced three teams all season. He got roughed up against Toronto, but pitched absolute gems against the Braves and the Yankees of all teams. So this dude can ball. We've seen. He had a rough game. He bounced back, had 2 great games. Given it was only 4.2 innings, that's a little concerning. I want to see what he does in another game. What does he do when he does another 6-inning game? We can against Cleveland, their 5-game winning streak. We have 2 pitchers I would say are pretty good. Bobby still has the advantage because he's pitched more innings. We see what he does. We know what we get with him. He hasn't done 3 games here, so with Cleveland having the batting advantage, slight advantage. I would say pitching advantage, probably slight as well. The odds I don't see why Baltimore is favored. We can't rock a team that's on a 3-game losing streak, but I will rock with Cleveland on the money line because I am getting plus money. The pitcher backs up, the offense backs up. I was going to go with the under, but Povich worries me. Seeing these numbers here worries me because I don't know what we're going to get here in the 4th game. So we see the couple games are great, but I want to see more games. So I will go with Cleveland on the money line and move on to the next one. Next up, we got Philly and Detroit. Philly's on a 2-game winning streak. Detroit won their game yesterday. Nola and his 3.64 is going up against Mize with his 4.43. You can see Nola pretty much has every category on lock except for the walks. He does give a few more himself. Nerfy's red. Urfi's orange. That's something to look at. We do have it's only 10% though. So, it's orange, but if both offenses are on fire, the pitchers are terrible, we might have to go with it. So let's look. Looking at the odds, we see that Philly is a pretty big favorite on the road. We have 8s, 8.5s out there for the total. Looking at the batting, we see Philly's offense is on fire. 6.7 runs their last 3 games for second, while batting 308 as a team. They had 4 runs yesterday, but they still batted 314, so they're still doing good. And they only strike, they're second in strikeouts, so they're not striking out much. Detroit, look at that trend line. That trend line is just up. They're 4.7 in their last 3 in runs for 13th now. They had 11 yesterday. They batted 263 yesterday in the last 3. They batted 400 yesterday. So there's your breakout. I said yesterday they could easily break out. When you're at the bottom, you tend to break out a good bit. So that's what they did. Even though yesterday they struck out 11 times. So they batted 400, but they struck out 11 times. That still puts them at 7.7 strikeouts for the last 3. So you can see Detroit, their offense is trending up. Philly is pretty much plateauing, maybe even starting to go down a little bit. But either way, they're still in the top 5, 6 of both categories. So we like to see that. Pitching-wise, Mize is going out there with a 4.3, with a 1.4. You can see he has not faced Philly recently, and he gives up a couple runs here and there. Nothing really outside of this KC game way back on May 21st, over a month ago now. But besides that, he's pitched decent. The only problem is 4 innings, 4 innings, 4 innings. He's not going to pitch much. Then we got to rely on the Detroit bullpen to come in, which we know they're not that great. So that leads to tell me there's going to be more runs here. So Nola, on the other hand, the word that comes to mind when I see Aaron Nola is mid. That's it, because 2, 2, 2. Oh, we have a great game. We can have nice things around here. Bam, 8. Got to cancel that back out. Back to mid. That's what he is. We know what we're going to get with him. He's going to get like 2 or 3 runs. Nothing wrong with that. Consistency is a good thing, so you know what to expect. So we see he's going to give up runs. Mize is going to give up runs. We see that the offense here, those are the odds. We see the offenses are Detroit's curling up. Philly is still hot. And we got 8s on the board. I'm going to take over 8 in this one. I'm not going to take a total, and we're just going to move on to the next one. Next up, we got Seattle and Tampa Bay. Neither team's on a streak to talk about. Woo's going out there with a 167, Bradley with a 406. You can see who leads in which categories. Nerfy are both in the red. That's not, we pass on those around here. Odds we see as I pick them across the board. A couple books. FanDuel mainly is the only one that has Tampa as an underdog, so take with that what you will. 7.5s across the board as well. Batting, they're about the same. Nothing's really standing out in this one. 5 and 5.3 for runs in the last 3. 259 and 290 for batting average. That's the only thing we have that's leaning either way. Tampa is 30 points better in their batting averages, which is that really that big of a deal? When you look at their trend lines, they're both starting to curl down. Downward trends aren't good. So we have that. The strikeouts 9 versus 8. You can see the last games. Nothing's really standing out here. Pitching wise, we see Woo went out there. I'm a big Woo fan. He pitches great. You can see his games. His worst games 3 and 3. Those are his worst games in the last month. So nothing stands out. He's a great pitcher. Bradley, he's not as good. He's had a couple rough ones against Baltimore here and against Boston here, but outside of that, these are good numbers. He's a good pitcher too. So technically, I would lean the under in this one, but the under 7.5. It was 8.5. I would take the under. Yeah, but I'm not doing 7.5 because the bats are trending down, but they are still middle of the road, which means they should still be able to get some runs in this one. So to me, there's too many things that are just too close together. So this entire game is just going to be a pass. Next game. Next up, we got Toronto and Boston. Toronto's on a 6-game losing streak. Boston's won their last 2. Bassett's going out there with his 3.52. Hawk's going out there with a 2.14. You can see Hawk has all the advantages when it comes to the statistics and pitching. Even though Bassett's a good pitcher, they're both good pitchers, let's be honest here. Nerfy both in the red, and we pass on those. Looking at the odds, we see that Boston is favored slightly at home at most books, and some books don't have lines for some reasons on this game. Weird. 8.5s on the books that do have them. Batting, we see that both teams' trend lines are curling up, which is good to see. Toronto, they were 25th and 20th, 24th, so they're starting to come up after the last game. So maybe they're starting to break out a little bit here. Boston, they're getting even better. So now last 3, they were 4.3 runs. Toronto's at 3 for 23rd, so we have advantage Boston in runs. 202 and 240 batting average the last 3. Slight advantage Boston, but just like the last game, is 30 points that much of a difference? And strikeouts, we see they're about 8 and 9. Nothing real stands out there. Pitching, I said at the start, both these pitchers are good. Look at these stats. You can see Bassett, he hasn't had a bad game on the screen here. So his worst game is 8 and 3 against Pitt. Like, come on, that's not a bad game. 7 for 2, 5-0, 4-1, 8-3, 5-0, 5-0. Given these are the White Sox, but hey, it's still, these are professionals here. So you can go that back-to-back games. That's good. So Hawk, on the other hand, you can see 2-4 with 0.97. His worst game is also 8-3 against Philly. So these 2 pitchers are good. That's the best. If your worst game is 3 given up, that's not a bad time at all. So we have 2 good pitchers. We have 2 offenses trending upwards. So for me, I can't take either side because I need an advantage statistically to take a side. Boston has a little bit more runs, but the batting average, 30 points more, isn't worth taking to me, especially with both pitchers being so good. I'm gonna have to do it. This is another game where we got to pass on everything. Next game. Next up, we got Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. Pittsburgh lost their last game. Cincy lost their last 2. Falter with a 3.74 is going out there for Pitt. Cincy is sending out Spires with a 3.20. We see that Nerfy are both red again. Pass on those. Looking at the odds, we see it's a slight favorite for Cincy at home. And for some reason, we have 9.5 and 10s on the totals in this one. That stands out to me. We'll show you why. Because the batting, there's a lot of double-digit numbers on the screen, which means they aren't that good at batting. So trend lines. Pittsburgh's trend line is diving into the dirt. They're 2.7 runs their last 3, 1 run last game. Batting averages 148 over the last 3, 103 the last game. They're bottom 4 in batting average. What? No. Where is this over coming from? Because maybe it's Cincinnati. They got 4 runs a game for 19th. They're lower middle. Batting average 260. Okay, they're trending up a little bit, but is it enough to carry the load of 9.5, 10 runs in this game? I don't think so. So that must mean the pitchers are terrible. Let's bounce over to them. Spires. He faced Pitt in his last game, 7 for 4. Okay, we go with the theory that Pitt, when batters and pitchers face each other, the hitter should have an advantage next time. Okay, he might give up 8 hits. 7 and 4 is not, you can see his other games. 1-0, 1-0, given 3, all these are 3 innings, that's 5, that's 6. Maybe he should have been for 6 innings, I'm not sure. Either way, this could be an outlier. So, and you see Falter, his last game was also Cincy. They faced each other. 7 for 2, 8 for 3. Dodgers got him for 5, but it's the Dodgers. You know, certain times you can excuse certain things, but this could be an outlier as well because you can see 0, 0, 3, 2. He doesn't have a bad game outside of 5 against the Dodgers. And if you're only giving up 5 in a bad game, that's, I mean, we've seen guys 8, 9, 10 runs given up. So neither pitcher is bad here. They've had 1 bad game. The rest of their games are good. We have 2 offenses that are, well, Pittsburgh's atrocious. Let's be honest here. They're just not good at all. Cincy, they're in the lower middle of being, so, I can't see them shouldering the weight of getting to 10 runs. So stats are saying it. The pitching saying it. I'm taking under of 10. Yeah, under of 10 in this game, and we'll move on to the next game. Next up, we got Atlanta against St. Louis. Atlanta 1-game winning streak. St. Louis 3-game winning streak. Atlanta sending out Schwellenbach. Name's too thick for the spot. Got to fix that. That's another thing we got to work on. Small things here and there. Got to be fixing this, so we're working on it. Still with the hands, too. The hands are missing. Working on it. It'll be here soon. He has a 4.98 ERA up against Lynn, who is a 4.08. Nervy's orange. We'll look at the pitching, hitting, see if we want to take a Nervy or not. Yerfy's red, pass. Odds, we see that Braves are slightly favored on the road. We have 8.5s across the board. We look at the bats. We see a big advantage for St. Louis in the bats here because St. Louis just played San Francisco. I believe they swept that series too. Yeah, they won all 3. So yeah, swept. 6.7 runs their last 3 for second. Meanwhile, Atlanta's at 4.7, so we have a 2-run differential. That's a pretty decent favor for St. Louis. 233 for 19 for the Braves. Meanwhile, 316 for St. Louis. That is a big advantage. That's all, 80-point differential. That's an advantage in baseball when it comes to batting. 10 versus 9.7. Neither one standing out. They're both not that great when it comes to not striking out as much. Now, pitching. We have Schwellenbach going out for Atlanta. He's only done 4 games this year, 4.98 with a 1.20. You can see his stats. Has not faced St. Louis. 5 for 3 against Washington, 7-6 against Boston, not good. 4-2 Baltimore, 3-1 against Detroit. He's getting better, but it was Detroit, and we saw earlier Detroit's offense has been not great in the past couple weeks. So take that with what you will. Lance Lynn, on the other hand, I said he is on my do not trust pitchers. He is one of 3 dudes. Everyone has their list of I don't touch this dude. Lance Lynn's one of those 3. Him, Patrick Corbin of the Nationals, and Manoah. Those are the 3. Every time I bet on them, they give up 1,000 runs. What happened? He finally gave up some runs. He was pitching decent for him, 4-3, but he gave up 10-6 against Miami his last game. So just when I was starting to trust him a little bit, he comes out and does this. So I can't do it. So in this one, you can see that he's starting to get poor. His numbers are starting to regress. Schwellenbach, we see, gives up runs. So with the odds being 8.5, we see that the offense, St. Louis is hot, Atlanta is middle of the group when it comes to offense. We have 8.5. I'm going to take over 8.5. Hope Lance Lynn has a meltdown again and gives it like 7 runs, or maybe Schwellenbach has a meltdown too. Over 8.5, move on to the next game. Oh, and on top of that, we are not taking an Nervy, not with these pitchers. So just over, next game. Next up, we get the Dodgers and the White Sox. 1-game win streak for LA, 1-game losing streak for Chicago. Paxton with a 7-1 and his 3.65 going up against Crochet with a 6-6 and a 3.25. Even though Crochet is 6-6, he still leads all the categories against Paxton, who's 7-1. That kind of makes me laugh. It's funny. Shows you how good the team is around you as well. Nerfy, both red. We passed there. Nothing worth talking about. Dodgers slight favorites on the road here. The Crochet factor is in effect here. So 7.5 and 8 are your totals across the board. We see batting. Dodgers have a slight advantage when it comes to both runs and batting average. Last 3 games, 4.7 versus 2.7 and 252 versus 223 on the averages. 30 points is not that big of an advantage at all. We said that in the last game. Not much of anything. 2 runs a game might be a little bit something, but not much that either. 8.3 on strikeouts. Dodgers aren't striking out much. They're 4th in the majors, 6 strikeouts a game. So we will look, even because you're looking over at Crochet strikeouts, dude's a strikeout machine. 8, 13, 10, 8, 11. Yeah, we'll look. If his number's like 7.5, yeah, I'll take the over. I'll throw a unit on it. Why not? But if we're sitting at 8.5, 9.5, thinking he's going to do this, no, pass all day. Can't do it. So 7.5 or anything better, we'll take on that. Paxton, we'll stay here. We say his few games. His worst game was against Houston. He gave up 3 here. But outside of that, great game. 1, 1, 1, 2 against Baltimore. Nothing. He's a great pitcher. That's why I don't think he'll be wearing a White Sox uniform come the trade deadline. I think he'll go to a big name team that's a playoff contender. So I'll be shocked if he doesn't. Paxton, on the other hand, 7-1. He's up and down. He has great games here and here, but then you see he gives up 6 to Pittsburgh. He does not like playing Cincinnati, clearly. 2 games where he gave up runs to them, but outside of that, we see what we get with them. So I would say White Sox have a clear advantage when it comes to pitching here, because Crochet is clearly a better pitcher than Paxton. Dodgers are better offensively. So we have one side has a better pitcher, one side has a better offense. Those two cancel each other out. So I can't take a side. I can't take a total. The only thing I can take is I will take Crochet strikeout props if I can get 7.5 or lower. If not, I am passing. Next game. All right, next up, we got Miami and Kansas City. Miami won their last game. Casey's on a 3-game losing streak. Munoz with a 5.76 is going up against Reagan's with a 3.23. You can see Reagan's pretty much has the advantage in all the pitching categories except for hits given up. Nerfy, both in the red. We pass on those when they're red. Odds, we see that it is KC by a hefty margin on the money line. 250s on the board out here. Something's up. We got to see why. Totals are 9.5. Looking at the batting, I struggled to see why Casey's favorite at all, if not 250. We see last 3 games, Casey's at 0.7 runs for last in the majors. They over the past 2 weeks, they are last in runs for 2.7. Over the last week, they're last with 1.8. Last 3 games are last at 0.7, and they got no runs yesterday in their last game. So they can't score. They can't hit either. They're last in batting average at 196 in the last 2 weeks. 172 over the last week is 28th. 122 in their last 3, and they batted .074 in their last game. Unless they expect a massive breakout for KC, I don't see it, because Miami, they're trending up. You see their trend line is popping up. Kansas City is buried in the dirt. It is gone forever. You can see Miami 3 runs again in the last 3 is only 23rd. I mean, it's better than 0.7. So, and they got 6 runs in their last game. They're only batting 196 for 25th. So we got 2 offenses that are struggling here. Even though Miami they're curling up because of their last game. They got 6 runs and they batted 241. Those are better than the 20s, so they go up a little bit. KC is laughable. Let's look at the pitching and see why. Reagan's, he has the advantages. 3.13, 1.15. We see his recent games has not faced Miami recently, as you can see. His worst game is a 3-run game against the Dodgers. Other than that, he's been pretty good. So yeah, we see why he has all the advantages. Nothing is really standing out here to say he's bad games. This is probably why the odds are what they are. Munoz is not that good. 5.46 with a 1.35. He's pitched 5 games in the past May and June. 3-1 against Colorado, not bad. 7-6 against the Dodgers. 5-4 against Cleveland. A 1-hit gem against the Mets of all teams for 6 innings, and then 8.76 against St. Louis. These aren't good numbers, but they're not like, oh, terrible. Oh no, this should be. Why are the odds this? This is something I'm just kind of perplexed by. I'm baffled even. So this makes no sense to me. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not going to take anything on the side anyways. Total wise, 9.5. When we see 2 offenses doing this poorly, I want to take some action on the under. I'm going to do that because 9.5, yeah. Just like the game earlier that was 10, I was like, why? The offenses struggle to score. If KC breaks out, fine, congratulations. I donated a unit. It happens. But I'm going to follow the stats here. Miami isn't doing that well. They're in the 25 to 23 range. KC is last. We have one pitcher we know is good, and Munoz. He's pitched a gem before. Other than that, he gives up a couple runs outside the last game against St. Louis. Yeah, I'm taking the under 9.5 in this one and moving on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Texas and Milwaukee. Texas on a 4-game winning streak. Milwaukee on a 1-game winning streak. Lorenzen with a 4.3 with his 3 ERA going against Peralta, who's 5-4 with a 4.06. Nerfy Urfia both in the red, so we pass on those. Looking at the odds, we see that Milwaukee's pretty decently favored at home. Looking at 170s, 160s out there. 7.5 and 8s on the totals. Batting, we see there's not much of an advantage. Texas is curling down. Milwaukee's trending up. We see 5.3 in their last 3 for Texas's 9th, meanwhile Milwaukee's at 5 for 11, so no advantage. Their last game, 4 and 6 runs, so again, no advantage in runs. 271 their last 3 for Texas for 11th. Milwaukee 318 for 3rd. Slight advantage Milwaukee. And strikeouts is the only thing we do have an advantage in. Texas 5.7 for strikeouts in their last 3. Meanwhile, Milwaukee is 10.7 for 27. So the only thing we're really going to look at in this one, I would say Milwaukee has a very, very slight advantage batting. But we are going to look at Lorenzen's strikeouts. So let's pop over and look at him right now. Lorenzen has a 3 ERA with a 1.15. His strikeouts 3, 2, 1, 7, 4. Nope, pass. I can't do strikeout props with a dude who goes out and no one gives up. The last 3 games has not struck out many people. Can't do that. That's a hard pass. So as a pitcher, 4 with 3, 4, 1, 7, 2, 5, 0. Not bad. Nothing really stands out here in this one. Has not faced Milwaukee, so that does nothing to worry about here. These are good numbers. Peralta, on the other hand, he's up and down. He is a roller coaster. He had a 3-hit gem against the Angels, 10-6 against Cincy, 4-3, 4-3. Pretty good June after the Houston game where he got blown up a little bit. So he's up and down. So it's hard to tell with him. So I would say Texas has a pitching advantage slightly. Milwaukee has a hitting advantage slightly. The odds, I don't know why Milwaukee is so favored in this one. I can't see why. Doesn't make sense to me. Either way, these two cancel out. We're not taking a strikeout prop. This entire game is going to be a pass. Next game. Next up, Oakland and the Angels. Oakland's lost 2. LA has lost 1. Medina has a 4.71 up against Canning with a 5.02. You can see Canning technically has the advantage in the categories. Nerfy is orange, so we will take a look at that. Urfie's red, that's a pass. Looking at the odds, we see the Angels are slightly favored at home, 8.5 totals across the board. The first time I saw this batting screen, I immediately thought of that meme, that, oh, brother, what is that? Oh, that's the first thing I thought of, because these numbers are atrocious. They're downright terrifying. I need to print this out and hang it on the front door for Halloween to scare the kids away. It's so bad, because look at all these numbers. These are just disgusting looking numbers. 25th for 2.7 for Oakland in their last 3. Angels 1.7 for 29. They both are 27th and 30th in batting average, 172 and 117 in the last 3 games. They both batted 100 in their last game. Oakland struck out 16 times in the last game. Angels struck out 12 times. These teams offensively are a joke. Minor league teams could be better right now because these two teams are playing so poorly right now. But you see that if your reaction is the same as mine. The first thing I thought was, ooh, they're so bad. Let's take the Nerfy, right? I thought that because it's orange. It stood out to me. Then it came to pitching. Medina, 4.71, 1.78. You can see he had a good 6-hit one against KC, 4 runs against Minnesota, 6 runs against Toronto, pretty good game against Atlanta. So he has 2 good games and 2 not so good games. So that's a little trepidation there on that one. Then I popped over to Canning here. Canning, 5 runs, 4, 3, 1, 3, 2. We can see he gives up runs too. So we have 2 pitchers that like to give up runs. So that makes it a little more complicated. But typically when you have offenses that are that bad and pitchers that are that bad, they tend to cancel each other out. And I can't take a side and pass on it. Not in this game. The Nerfy 60.2, but 60.29. And we have offenses this bad. This is all on me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to hope the pitchers don't give up anything in the first inning. We're going for those 6 quick outs, baby. We're going for the Nerfy in this one. Rolling the dice. Next game. Next up, we got Washington and San Diego. Neither team's on a streak to talk about. It's almost like I spoke his name to existence while I was going over St. Louis, talking about Lance Lynn. I said his name too many times, and then poof, there he is before my eyes. Mr. Corbin appears with his 1-7 record, staring us in the face. 5.6 ERA up against Waldron, 5-6 record, 3.46 ERA. Nerfy's orange, it's almost green. It's 68.9, but I can't do it, not with Corbin pitching. I just can't. I've seen too many times he gets rocked in the first inning, so that's a pass for me. Odds, we can see San Diego is heavily favored at home, -200s almost across the board. 7.5, 8, 8.5, your choices out there for totals. Batting, we see both teams in the last 3 are pretty hot. 6.7 versus 5.7. They both cooled off a little bit the last game, only got 2 runs. 315 for Washington, 320 for San Diego in their last 3. They both cooled off again last game, and neither team striking out much. Looking at pitching, Waldron's going out there with a 3.46 with a 1.16 whip. He has been almost unhittable. I saw a video talking about how he has probably the nastiest pitch in all of baseball right now. Several big leaguers were talking about his pitch is almost impossible to hit. And it's showing off because, yeah, his ERA is high, but that was from earlier in the season because now 5 for 1, 3 for 2, 3 for 1, 2 for 1, 6-0, 6-2. Dude is beasting right now because he's just on fire. Corbin, on the other hand, look, I dog him a little bit, but his last couple of games have been good. 3 for 1 against Arizona, 4 for 1 against Detroit. Those are good games. I like that. 7 for 6 against the Mets is not good. 6 for 2, 4 for 3, 9 for 8. If the both offenses weren't so hot right now, I would probably take the Nerfy. But when both teams are swinging this great, I can't back a Nerfy right now. And I'll be honest, there's a little bit of like, oh, I don't trust Corbin. Like I said, everyone has those no bet people. Like, you don't bet on these people. So yeah, I can't do that. So the odds, you can see where they are. I can't take a total in this one because we have pitchers that are pitching great. We have offenses that are batting great. So I can't take a total. Money line, I see why San is hard. It's almost, I see why it's hard, why San Diego's favored so much, because I think even Vegas is fading Corbin, but the pitching is, you can see he's pitching great his last couple games. So we don't know if this is going to, if he continues this, yeah, he's going to be much better. But if he does this again, yeah, we don't know. So for me, with the odds being where they are and the bats being where they are, to me, this entire game, I'm just going to pass on it, move on to the next one. And last game, we got the Cubs and the Giants. Cubs lost their last one. Giants have lost 5 in a row. This game's going to be hard to do because we have Steele going out there who's 0-3 with a 3.47 ERA, but the Giants have not announced who's pitching, so my model does not like that, and it freaks out, so we don't know. It does spit out that the Nervy is 61.8, though, for these teams. That's something to look at. Eurofee's 4.5. I will show odds. We do have a couple odds out there. We have some money lines starting to pop up, so we see we're getting the Giants favored, even though we don't know who's pitching. What does that say about the Cubs? Team on a 5-game losing streak, and we don't know who the pitching is, somehow favored at some of these books. I think these books are just trying to get your money. That's all it is. Looking at the batting, we can see, we'll show this off, both teams are about the same in the last 3 games on runs. 3.7 versus 4, slight advantage San Francisco. 220 versus 232, that's 20 and 22nd in their last 3, no advantage there. And Cubs are striking out a lot. 11.7 versus 7.7. Cubs struck out 14 times in their last game, which was last night. So that's a lot of strikeouts. So there's nothing that really stands out on the odds here. Pitching, we'll look at Steele because we have him. We'll look at stuff up. 316, 107. You can see his recent games. He has faced San Fran in his last game, had 4 hits and 2 earned. That was it, but 8 strikeouts. Pretty good numbers against San Fran. Since you're facing him again, will he be as good? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. So 3-0 against Tampa Bay. Couple games, a 1 against Cincy. His worst game was against the Braves back a month ago. So in his last month, he's been pretty good. And again, we don't know who's going out for San Fran. So literally, there's nothing to bet on. So I can't touch any of this until I know more. So if I add this, once they announce a pitcher, I'll do more research. If I do add it, I'll update it via the YouTube or the Twitter or whatever. I'll put it out there. But for now, this game's going to be a pass. All right, that's it. That's all 12 games broken down. Do a quick little recap for everybody because I know some people like to do this little quick 60-second recap. But first, drop what you're going to play, your best play of the day. I'm always looking for more winners, and I don't have all the stats. Just let me know in the comments who you're taking. That way I might be able to back a couple of you and add some more plays to my card because I don't have that many plays today and I like to play more games. So for the recap, Cleveland money line, we're going to do Philly Detroit over of 8 runs. Seattle Tampa Bay is going to be a pass. Toronto Boston is going to be a pass. Pittsburgh and Cincy, we're going to go under 10 runs. Atlanta St. Louis, we're going over 8.5 runs. In the Dodger White Sox game, we're going to look at Crochet strikeout props. If I can find 7.5 or lower, I'm taking it. Anything higher, I'm passing on. Miami KC, I'm going under 9.5. Texas, Milwaukee, I am passing on. Oakland, LA, I'm going with the Nerfy, just that, nothing else. Washington, San Diego is going to be a pass. And Chicago, San Fran, for now is a pass, but it could be a play once we know who San Fran is going to be sitting out for their pitcher. If they do, like I said, I'll update it here in the comments or on the community tab or on Twitter, probably all three. So that's it. Let me know in the comments who you're playing. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and we will see you tomorrow.